Hello, I'm April Jones, and we at Jones Law Firm care about you, your family, and your well-being. That's why we've put together this informative webinar series to answer your questions about life, about the law, about your family. So thank you for joining us, and let's get started. Hi, everyone. We are going to get started. Hi, I'm April Jones. I have been an attorney 29 years. If you don't know that already, I've been having Jones Law Firm PC in Colorado for 20 years. So we are in our 20th anniversary. We do family law exclusively. And today we have a very important family law topic as part of our COVID-19 webinar series, Your Family, Your Finances, and Your Future. Today we are talking about parental alienation. And if you have ever been an alienated parent, you know how critical and what a significant issue this can be for a family, for your children, for yourself as a parent. And my guests today, Pathways family coaching experts, Jenna Noble and Monique Mason. They have personal experience. They started this reintegration, this coaching company, and they work with families around the globe. And Monique, why don't you jump in and introduce yourself before we start taking questions?
Sure. So I basically got involved in parental alienation about almost 20 years ago now when I started experiencing it myself. So I am an alienated parent. I was alienated from my stepdaughter for close to 15 years. We are now reconnected and have a very, very close relationship. Um, and through this experience, I realized that there was a real gap in what parents who are experiencing this needed. So that's kind of when I started training as a coach to help parents, and that's my passion. So I completely switched careers from engineer to coach, and yeah,
Haven't looked back?
haven't looked back. No, not at all.
Jenna,
Hi, thanks for having us.
thanks for being
Um,
here.
like Monique, I came into experience this because I married a man that was alienated from his children. He had twin girls that he was severely alienated and lost complete contact with for over 10 years. Through thinking outside the box and tenaciousness, and I'm a bit of a bulldog, so I thought, we have to solve this. We can't continue like this, and we were able to strategize and get to this day, it's still an unheard of protective separation where the courts finally were able to recognize that this was a form of child psychological abuse that my husband's children were enduring, that the relationship that he lost with them and they lost with him was necessary to their development, and was harmful if they didn't reconnect with him. So we were able to, like I said, navigate this and get that time with his children that we didn't have for over 12 years.
Wow, wow, that's pretty.
Yeah,
Congratulations to you. That's
thank
quite a
you.
way because reintegration or alienation can be an uphill battle. But that's why
Yes.
you need a team on your side if you can get a team. And that's what we're going to talk about today. This is on their website. Children exposed to significant conflict require special guidance that at times can seem counterintuitive. This is more important than ever when a child has completely been cut off from one parent and is refusing all communication. We help parents to deeply understand their children's behavior and experience and guide them in providing their children with the parenting support they desperately need. Now, why that really rang true to me or is so significant to me is we have these clients all the time, unfortunately. The thing that varies is the age. It's common, unfortunately, to have a 15-year-old who doesn't want to see the other parent, one, because they're 15, right? So you just get that. And then when you pour the fuel on the fire of alienation, some of these just are very sad situations that we just really have to, as attorneys, just get in there and figure out what we can do to show the court what's happening because it's hard. The mom is going to say, and just in this example that I have, it's a mom, it could be a mom or a dad. Of course, I'm trying to, I'm trying to tell them to get in the car. I'm telling them to go. I'm fully support the relationship. I mean, do you guys find that where you have the parent parrot all the words that sound good but do nothing? So I
Absolutely.
find that to be common. And that's hard to get around with the court without being very intentional because they're saying the words that the court would say, oh, I understand. You are doing everything you can. You fully support the relationship. You always have supported the relationship. Your child just won't go.
Yes, absolutely.
Where do you guys come in with that situation?
So this is very common, and I tell alienated parents, and we've even written about this on our Instagram account, is that it's important for a parent that's experiencing this to really understand that often the alienating parent is telling the child, "I support you. If you would like to have a relationship with your mother and father, the door is there whenever you want. I will drop you off. I will do whatever it takes to make that relationship happen." So the child becomes very confused and will say to the courts, "My mom or my dad is supporting my relationship with my other parent. It's I don't want a relationship with them. I don't like them. They're abusive," right? Because the courts don't understand that there is subtleties that come into play when you deal with alienation, right? So the child may come home from the other parent's house and say, "I had such a great time with dad today," and mom might go, "That's great," and take off, leave the room, or roll her eyes, or make he or she, sorry, I'm talking about a woman, but it can be a man or a woman, may make subtle, you know, movements with their body, may, become sullen. It's these subtleties that give the signal to the child, my relationship with my other parent is not okay with this person, right? So that's where the bridge needs to be gapped between the courts and the mental health world, or what's really happening to the child, what's the child's perspective and experience, and why are they rejecting this parent.
Right. And
Yeah.
from the court's perspective, I mean, they're going to see you at 2 hours at a time, four
Mm-hmm.
times a year, and that's if you're really a high conflict
Yeah.
case, right? You're not spending that much time. So to be able to pick up on those nuances is where where we send people to have what we call in Colorado a child and family investigator, reintegration therapy, or therapy in general. But you're bringing in third parties to help the court be able to see through the eyes of an expert
Mm-hmm.
that this is going on. How do you guys help with that?
Did you want to take that, Monique?
Yeah, actually, sorry, my thought, if you don't mind me kind of backtracking, and I wanted to add to what Jenna was saying before, is that something that's really important for parents to understand is that, when the child is rejecting the parent isn't when alienation started. It quite often started years and years before. So there's all this groundwork that's been laid over a very long period of time, and the alienating parent has been able to kind of shift that child's view
Mm-hmm.
to the point where, you know, when they get to the point where they're saying, hey, yeah, go spend time with the other parent, in addition to these, subtleties, subtle communication through body language that they're receiving, the child's kind of mindset is already somewhat enmeshed with what the alienating parent's mindset is. So they don't have to kind of convince the child to reject the parent anymore, right? They've already reached that stage. So
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
anyways, I'm sorry to kind of digress, but
No, please do. I mean, what I look at these as conversations. We're talking. We have people listening, and listeners, please join in the Q&A if you have questions, and ask your questions. We're going to try to get to as many as we can. We got a lot of questions ahead of time, so please, we know this is unique and special circumstances for just the very, very case fact. So please jump in when you have some. Interesting. So when I was growing up, my parents were divorced when I was young, and we had great aunts who lived in town who didn't have any children. So they really kind of took us on and showered us with, all love and etc. Took us shopping, did all these like super fancy things. And even as you were talking, I realized my aunt would take me shopping and we'd go to all these fancy stores and buy, whatever I could figure out to make from Saks Fifth Avenue that I could make look like I got it from the mall, you know. And then I'd come home with all my stuff, and then my mom and I would go and return it, and then I'd buy what I would like. That's and it seemed like it was a fine shopping trip. But now that you're talking, I realize I would just be kind of peddling between the two of them,
Mm-hmm.
and then returning all the stuff because it made my mom feel good.
Yeah.
And I didn't think I'm 54, and I'm just
Yeah.
now thinking of that. It seems
Yeah.
normal. That is not normal.
Yeah,
No,
it's
it's
amazing. Yeah. And a really good point, because a lot of people think parental alienation is, and I'm not saying that your aunts were alienating you, please don't think that, but it just brings up a good point that a lot of people think that alienation happens between two parents, but a lot of our clients are being alienated by their
Okay.
own parents, their grandparents, or one of their best friend has moved in and taken their kids, is now completely alienating them. It can be really anyone in the child's life that can obstruct that bond between their parent.
Right.
Yeah.
What is parental alienation then?
That's a very loaded question.
yeah, no kidding. Uh, I would say, um, it's when it could be a family member or a friend actually. Oh, my words are
But
escaping
let's
me.
keep it in the context of family law because
Okay,
most of our attendees have custody cases.
Yeah.
okay, so it's when one parent weaponizes a child against another and really interferes with that bond that the child has with that one parent. And eventually, usually we find kind of anywhere between age 10 to 15 is the average. That child will decide to emotionally cut off from that parent because the stress of the situation just becomes to be too much. They go into, you know, um, survival mode pretty much.
Hmm.
And how can I tell if my child's other parent is attempting to cause alienation?
Very good question. Yeah. Dr. Amy Baker has come up with, a list of tactics that parents will use. We cite or use in our work the top 17, but it can be things like bad mouthing the other parent, interfering with communication, just not allowing contact. Um, there's a whole list of those, which we're happy to post on this thread after so that parents can take a look at that. But there's also behaviors that the child will start to display. Again, Dr. Richard Gardner, he came up with 8 behaviors that children will show when they're being alienated. And Dr. Craig Childress talks about there's 3 diagnostic indicators that the child will display when they're dealing with alienation as well. So I don't know if you want to go into a few for those that are listening, Monique. I know you have a better memory for this stuff than I do. So
Yeah, I mean, Dr. Richard Gardner, there's definitely, the child will actually start denigrating the parent, so they'll kind of join in on the bad mouthing. I think the biggest thing is that the denigration is really for frivolous reasons. Like they'll say, oh, well, mom likes heavy metal music. Heavy metal music sucks, or, you know,
they sweep funny.
dad's, yeah, sweep's funny, dance is funny. It's just really unsubstantiated, silly claims to actually reject a parent. And I think the other thing to look for too is what was the relationship with that child like before the divorce versus after the divorce,
Hmm.
right? Because sometimes children will reject a parent for legitimate reasons.
Hmm. For
If,
legitimate abuse. Yeah.
Yeah.
if parental alienation is happening, how can you fix it with your child?
That's where we come in. Yeah.
Take it away.
There's
So in hindsight is a wonderful educator, right? So Monique and I have both personally gone through this, and we've done a lot of the things wrong in our situation. And looking back now, and now doing the work we've done and talking to so many adults that were alienated children and really understanding their perspective now and what they needed and what they were going through. Um, we coach, we work one-on-one with parents to help them to understand their child's perspective and needs. And it's very counterintuitive to work with or even to communicate with these kids as a parent, right? Telling our child that we miss them and we love them and, why won't you talk to me? And all of these things actually pushes our children further away. But these are the natural things that we want to say to our kids, right? And normal conversation. So we help teach the parents skills in simple things like boundaries. What are your boundaries, right? How do you teach those to your children? Because they need to learn boundaries surrounding their relationships. Because at the end of the day, children need both their parents. Even
Sure.
if we're dealing with an alienating parent, they still love and need that parent. And it is up to that child to learn the skills to navigate that relationship, right? Especially with a high conflict individual. So it's up to the alienated parent to really teach the child how to do that, right? We need to model that and teach them skills and resiliency and how do you deal with high conflict people, communicate with them, and how do you not take on another person's emotions? How do you know when you're experiencing an emotion and that's actually belongs to someone else, right? Because we
Uh,
do this as adults.
Absolutely. Is that part of the coaching, or is that part of the coaching that you?
Yeah, so we teach these skills in our programs. So we do have online programs that parents can access and go through, but we also do teach these things when we're working in a one-on-one coaching situation with the parents, because these are kind of the foundational skills that are needed to keep that child out of the middle of this conflict and help them to navigate it. Mm-hmm.
I'm a grandmother experiencing alienation, which is really on point with what we were talking about earlier, which
Mm-hmm.
is why I just jumped to this question. My daughter turned my grandson against me after having years of a wonderful relationship with him. Are most attorneys and judges educated with the subject of grandparent alienation? So I'm going to start with that. So in terms of Colorado, we have in grandparents having grandparent rights. If there's an existing case, then grandparents can file for grandparent rights, but you have to have had a relationship with the child. There's a time period. So you would need to meet the test, and then you can ask the court for grandparent time. And the problem that I sometimes see with alienation is that by the time the grandparents get to us, it's been, 2 years since they last saw the child or last had a relationship, and then they've lost the test essentially for being able to bring a grandparent action, because essentially what the court is looking to do is, our standard is the best interest of the child in Colorado. So the court is looking to, if you have a solid loving relationship with your grandchild, it's in the child's best interest to have access to that grandparent. That's the thought process, right? So you need to demonstrate that you do have a relationship that is valuable and in the child's best interest to protect and support. If you wait too long to contact me, you you're and 2 years have gone by, then now you're losing the traction, and you can't, you lose the claim that if this relationship isn't maintained, it'll hurt the child because the relationship hadn't been maintained. So you want to get advice on your case straight away. Now, that's the legal answer. We are going to turn to our parental alienation experts and talk about what you can do outside of court or in addition to court to get your grandchild back. Monique, Jenna, however you wanted it.
Why don't you start this one off, Jenna?
Okay. So, same skills are needed, right? No matter who's navigating this. I always tell my clients someone needs to lead the family,
Hmm.
right? And the person that's going to step up to the plate is usually the parent or the grandparent or whoever is left behind that's willing to put in the work that's needed to lead this family out of what's happening. At the end of the day, we're dealing with trauma, right? There's some sort of root of trauma that's going on in this family. And Monique and I are very much about, finding a holistic solution that can help this whole family to really recover from the trauma it's experiencing and stop this, right? We don't want to pass this on to the next generation. There is something to be said about generational trauma. So grandma, you're the leader. You're the one that has to step up to the plate and say, I'm not going to allow this to continue to happen in the generations to come. I'm going to lead my family out of this. So you need to learn skills. And I would ask you, and I can't ask you right now, but I want you to think about this question, is what is the dynamic that's happening between you and your daughter that has led to this point? And how can we solve this? Everything has a solution. I firmly believe that. Work with a coach or get in contact with someone that is trained in family systems therapy specifically, or has a really good understanding of the attachment system, because a family works kind of like a society, right? And if somebody is not functioning in that society, we have rules. We put them in jail, or we do something to create, the society that we need so everyone can continue to move forward. And the same goes with a family. So when something is happening in a family system that is not, that has gone awry, then the whole family is going awry, right? So a family systems therapist works to figure out what that thing is that's going on in the family system that is causing the breakdown, and then they help you to come up with a plan to actually treat the family as a whole and to fix whatever is happening so that you guys can thrive and continue on.
So while the grandmother in our case here is
Hmm.
taking the lead,
Hmm.
you, if she was using a system like yours, you would be coaching her and advising her on how to do that.
Absolutely. Right.
Okay.
So it starts with skills. It starts with understanding, well, with us understanding what the history is of the family and the dynamics that have occurred so we can understand, where maybe there has been a rupture. And then we can help coach grandma on, how can you bridge that? Right.
Right.
And sometimes it takes a bit of strategy too to get the parent or whoever is kind of doing the alienating to forward and try to, to fix the situation. Yeah.
So the upside of a coach such as you guys is
Hmm.
you could call your best friend and you could talk to your best friend about it. And if they're a good best friend, I mean, they could be helpful, but they're not trained in alienation. They don't deal with this all day, every day. This isn't their, 100th, 15-year-old refusing to get in a car. So,
Exactly.
okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've got a few of these, quite a few. So let me just kind of move through these faster. I feel like my ex wife's new wife is alienating my child. Is there anything I can do about this? Or how can I get my ex to realize the effect this is having on my child? My ex won't stand up to her, and she bat mouths me to my child all the time.
Hmm.
Jenna, you are a step parent and you're an
Yes.
expert.
Yeah, this is really common that a new partnership will occur, and the alienating parent is the step parent. It's important to understand where that's stemming from. It's usually from some jealousy and insecurity. So
Sure.
I always say it's very hard, especially when you're dealing with your own children. We're protective, but to meet this with some empathy and understanding of the perspective of the other person that's perhaps doing the alienating. We need to lead with love and compassion. And what does that look like?
I was
And
about to say, what does that mean?
yeah, I know. What does that mean? That sounds great, Jenna, but okay.
Okay, don't, you're right. Don't punch her. Okay, what up?
Yeah. When I say love and empathy, it's really, we get caught up in alienation. We're in protection mode. We're mama bear. Like, don't mess with my kid, and you're not my kid's parent, so don't you dare start bad mouthing me. And I totally get all of that. But again, someone's going to lead this family, and it's either going to be the alienator that's going to lead them down the wrong path, or it's going to be you that chooses to show your kid what that path is going to look like and how, again, to manage what's happening, because this kid is stuck with a new step parent no matter what, and they're the ones stuck with dealing, listening to all the crap, excuse my language, that's coming out of stepmom's mouth. So again, it's about the parent learning skills to teach to their child so that child learns to set boundaries, right? It's something as simple as, the kid saying to an upset step parent, I see you're upset. Would you like a hug? Right? It
Mm,
sounds silly, but somebody I know actually taught me that, and that's great. Or I don't. It hurts me when you talk about my mom. Can you stop doing that? Right? Kids don't know that it's okay to have their voice, so it's important for mom to teach her that, because she can't control what's happening in that household. Right? We can't control somebody else's behaviors. We can only control ourselves. And the empathy and love comes in because it's understanding where this is coming from. Why is this person behaving in this way? Right? And when you can get to that point and understand that it's most likely due to some of her own trauma, maybe some childhood trauma, things she's experienced, her own insecurities, jealousy over this man she loves has children with somebody else and she
sure.
doesn't share that, right? It's being able to navigate it with some empathy, and that's a model that we want to give to our children.
And then just giving your children words to say, because if you
Yes.
as an adult don't know what to say when someone does that, I mean, you don't know what to say sometimes when people cut you off in the street, right? You People say, oh,
Yeah.
I should have told them. I
Yeah.
actually never do that. I should have said, I should say it right away. But
Yeah.
people don't always know what to say, and how in the world would a child, if the new step parent whose house they are now, like, they're in under their roof,
Yeah.
this is where you get your food and your clothes and
Hmm.
your shirts ironed, right? So
Exactly.
giving them tools,
Yeah.
just the words you just said seem so essential, simple, but they could be
Hmm.
very impactful.
Yeah. Just
for
simple
kids.
things that we can equip our children with to help them navigate it. Because, like I said, at the end of the day, this kid's got to navigate it because they need to have a relationship with their other parent. That's non-negotiable, right?
Right.
Even if alienation is happening in that house, they need and they want and they love their other parent. So how do we help this kid to have both their parents and navigate whatever's coming at them?
My ex-husband alienates himself but blames me. He often doesn't follow through on buying things he said he'll buy. He doesn't show up for donuts with dad. He doesn't take accountability. So when the kids look to me because I follow through and I show up, but as kids, if I deny them or tell them no, they and their dad tend to make me the villain, and then I feel the alienation. What can I do? So this sounds like a dad who doesn't do what he's supposed to do, and mom who does do it. And then when she doesn't do something, then the dad jumps in and makes her the villain with the kids.
Hmm. Also common, unfortunately. Monique, do you want to take this one?
Sure. I think, you know, we talk a lot with our parents about documentation. I'm going to start there. Is, all you can do as a parent is encourage a relationship with the other parent. And if that parent is refusing, you can't control their behavior, right? So I think it's important, if you're worried about being faced with somebody else accusing you of alienation, is documentation. And that's why we always encourage parents to communicate with their co-parent using written form. So email, text messages, that kind of thing. And again, it goes back to skills, teaching the parents skills again to teach their children, so that the children develop critical thinking and they don't get roped into, um, the campaign that parent who's actually not participating starts against the parent who is trying to participate, if that makes any sense. I don't know
Hmm.
if you have anything to add to that, Jenna.
Yeah, critical thinking skills are huge, and that's the first thing that an alienating parent will try to strip from a child is their critical thinking. They want them to feel what they want them to feel. They want them to think what they want them to think, right? These people don't want their children to think for themselves. So it's really important that parents learn their own critical thinking skills. It's amazing how many adults out there don't have critical thinking and don't, put those into action. And teaching our children how to think critically. So, let's say dad doesn't show up. We can't be telling the kids that your dad didn't show up. The kid's going to say, well, why isn't dad here? And usually as a parent, what we do is we answer the question, right? We answer everything for our kids. Well, dad's not here because he didn't want to be, or he couldn't make it, or he had an appointment. You develop critical thinking by asking the children questions and having them come to their own conclusion, right? So why don't
It's so
I'm
hard
so
to get right though. You're supposed to have
yeah,
your job and take care of everything you're supposed to take care of and manage your whole life, and
yeah,
then also ask the proper questions when
yes,
someone's being an idiot. What
yeah,
right?
yeah,
What
it's true.
is there literature? What tips could you give people that they could just take and apply today? Something they can read, something they can do online, a test they can take, something that can more empower them to take these steps.
Yeah, the simplest thing you can do is use Google, what are critical
Yeah.
thinking questions I can ask a child, right? How do we teach critical thinking skills? But it's
And more specifically about the alienation, what steps can they take today
yeah,
that would make a difference?
they can call us. It's gonna be my answer for everything. But again, this is something that we work one-on-one with parents to teach them. Is we go through past scenarios and things that the kids have brought up or scenarios that have happened, and how did the parent handle that,
Yeah.
and then we can coach them through. Well, that wasn't productive because of these reasons, or that worked because of this, and let's try this next time, right? So we'll walk through the scenario again and say, if your child were to say to you next time, dad told me that you cheated on me, drop the bomb, instead of becoming defensive and reactive and saying to the kid, I didn't cheat on your dad. Your dad's the one that cheated on me. That never happened. Do not believe things like that. Right? Then the kid's caught in this conflict of, well, someone's lying to me because these stories don't match. You You start asking questions and you respond always with empathy. It always comes down to empathy, right? Put yourself in your kid's shoes. I'm so sorry that you had to hear that. That must have hurt you, right? That must have been really hurtful to hear that. Why do you think that's true? Or do you think that's true? Have I ever done anything that would make you feel or lead you to believe that I would do something like that? Right? Do you think that's part of my character? Right? Just start to ask questions so that the kid can think their way out of it. That no, my mom has always been really moral. She's never given me a reason to think that she would act in that way. What I remember was my dad walked out of the house because mom was saying that he cheated, right? They get to think through it and come to their own conclusion, and then that pulls them out of the conflict of having to choose, well, who's telling me the truth and who's lying? Which of these parents is telling me a lie?
Would a psych evaluation of the alienated child bring up issues that could be used in court? And what examples of child hearsay could be used in court in the context of parental alienation? Psych evals, is that even part of what you do? And will that show parental alienation?
Oh, first of all, we do not do psych evaluations. And I think there's parental alienation is so complicated and there's so many different dynamics going on that it's really, really difficult for any mental health professional to actually identify it just by interviewing the child alone. They really need to they really have to interview all of the members of the family. And that's why we often, really, really promote finding a qualified family systems therapist who perhaps has, background knowledge in attachment and trauma and even personality disorders.
And you help people with that as part of the services you provide. You help them find the proper therapist.
That's correct. We help
Analyst.
them locate somebody near them that can help their family. Yeah.
Okay, and it doesn't matter what state they're in.
No.
Okay. Not mental state. I meant state of the union.
That's right. It doesn't matter where you are located geographically. We help. We can help you with that. Yeah, for sure.
What do I do if my kids refuse to talk to me or refuse to come with me on my parenting time? And I'm going to jump in, then this will take care of a couple questions. And for different ages, if you have somebody who's a little kid versus somebody who's a preteen, is it the same answer or a different answer?
Well, I mean, there's a certain age where, for example, if the child's 7,
Mm-hmm.
in our view, the child doesn't have a choice in the matter. They're too young to be making that decision as to which parent they should be with, right?
And
So,
I agree with you.
yeah, when you get to a 15-year-old, it's a little harder to force a 15-year-old to come with you, right?
So let's start with the 7-year-old. What do I do if my 7-year-old refuses to talk to me or refuses to come with me on my parenting time?
You document. So first off, you need to know how to communicate with your child so you don't exasperate the situation, right? Which comes with some coaching. And then documentation. So often we help strategize with our clients how to build their documentation and organize it in a manner so that if they do ever have to take the other parent to court, they have what they need to hand, April a package and say, hey, I've been doing my homework and I've been keeping my documentation. So here you go. Your job will be easy, right? So we help you in, we kind of micromanage those communications sometimes. So let's say you have to send a communication to your co-parent. You will send it to us first, and we will help you take out anything that's going to raise the conflict. We try to manage that communication for a good outcome. And then if they respond, same thing. You send it to us, and we kind of work through the word salad because personalities that are alienating always kind of respond in the same way with, I call it like a machine gun effect, where they shoot 50 different things at you.
Right.
And there's only one thing maybe in that whole communication that needs any sort of response. So we help you work through the word salad and just keep focused on the issue at hand so that when we hand this to April has a really nice clear case she can put together of one parent that has been managing their emotions well, that has been really good at communicating, that has been really clearly doing their work to keep the conflict to a minimum. And hopefully then with April's help, the judge is going to see that we've got one parent here who really has a strong head on their shoulders and is doing what is in the best interest of the child, and then we have one parent that's creating chaos.
And I like what you call the word salad, because that is so true. It's like a email this long. It talks about who cheated, you didn't give their shoes back. I never wanted the dog, but you made me have the dog. All to, will you be at the park at 7 o'clock on Tuesday?
Yes,
That's the one.
exactly.
And so to get an email that you don't respond to, they're all just little landmines made for you
Yes.
to go
Yeah. Yeah.
till you get to the part about the park. So if you just say Tuesday 7 p.m. is fine,
Yeah.
then that's what you
Exactly.
help people learn to do.
Exactly. And then we make it a lot easier on your lawyer because then they're not having to stabilize you. When you're totally destabilized from all the word salad that's coming at you from your ex, they can just do their job and focus on, litigating and creating a good case for you.
Right. And if people are nice and enmeshed with their ex, or the ex really learned them, they can really pack a lot into that salad,
Oh yeah,
right?
they can.
Just special just for you. Um, so if you are in a situation where you're getting word salads and you're feeling like you're just responding or just really uh, disturbed inside or stressed, that's what it was designed to do. So
Yes.
you're not what is it? It's you are being followed. Like it's not you're not paranoid if you're being followed. You are being set up to respond this way. It's just
Mhm.
that in court it's not helpful.
No, because
No.
then when you ramp up
Yep.
and start to defend yourself, the judge looks at all this before him and is probably thinking, this is two high conflict, crazy people
Yep.
that can't get their stuff together to help this kid, instead of understanding that we have one parent that is, purposely doing this, and then we have one that's reacting.
Right. I liken it to if you've had multiple children and they're in the back seat and two are fighting and you don't
Hmm.
know who started, and you just want to stop. You don't
Yes.
want to know who started it. Now, eventually, when you do know who starts it, over time, you can take the proper action. But in that initial moment, if once you just start going at it,
Hmm.
even though they pushed your button the whole car ride, you
Hmm.
look just as culpable.
Exactly.
And so you guys help them dig out of that and show where the fault is by putting this detailed package together over a period of time.
Yep.
Exactly. Exactly.
Sounds wonderful to me.
I know, because you're a lawyer and you have to deal with the craziness that comes. And, Monique and I were alienated parents. We were crazy. We were emotional all over the place. We were in defense mode. We were reacting. We looked crazy,
Right?
right?
Those
So,
babies, right? Mama bear, babies.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, right? So, I mean, we get it. But when you're stepping into the courtroom, you can't look crazy. We need to stabilize you and help you to, just focus on the facts at hand and just regulate your emotions. It's not helpful.
We have another question. I'm going to take this one because it's got a COVID component, and this is the COVID-19 webinar.
Hmm.
I'm pursuing an APR, which is the allocation of parental responsibilities. So in Colorado, if you were never married, you file an allocation for the
Mm.
court to allocate parenting time and parenting duties. So I'm pursuing an APR. We're attempting to prove standing as I am a non-gestational parent, it's his son, and a non-bio kin to my ex's niece and nephew who we fostered, she adopted after her sister passed away. Okay.
Okay.
I've been told the courts can take a long time now due to COVID. Yes, the courts are backed up because we had no court, what, half of March, all of April, unless it was emergencies. So emergency matters were still held in Colorado, and then other matters were essentially the courts working remotely. So they're granting orders or motions and doing what they can remotely and having some virtual court, but for the most part, stuff was continued and then pushed into June and beyond for cases that would have been resolved 6 weeks ago, plus the new cases from the pandemic, because pandemics are hard on relationships.
Hmm.
So yes, it can take a longer. I'm especially concerned not as the kids are separated from their usual school support during COVID, who could pick up on cues. Okay, so you don't have the teachers who would normally be interacting with the children to pick up on signs of what's going on because there's no school right now. I am hopeful to be reunited with the next few months. My focus is what to be aware of during the reintegration, as I don't know what they have been told. And I want to be sensitive to reunification also being a traumatic experience for the kids. So it sounds like the bottom line here is this person is expecting to interact with the children again, and they want to know what they should be aware of because he or she doesn't know what the children have been told.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And awesome questions, and thank you for wanting to be prepared because you're right. You need to get ready. We have a course called Ready to Reunite for a reason.
Oh,
It's not effective if you are not stable and ready for that to happen and know what to expect. So it's going to be a really sensitive time period. If the kids are being alienated and a bunch of falsities are being driven into their belief system, then you can probably expect that the children are probably confused and very angry. They're probably going to spit a lot of allegations your way. I call it kind of like an emotional blow up when you think of a 2-year-old throwing a temper tantrum for not getting a chocolate bar in the grocery store. It's kind of how these kids act, and they're so overwhelmingly angry. And again, parents want to defend, and they want to tell their side of the story, what happened. I encourage you to please don't do that. Again, everything is from the child's perspective. So again, put yourself in the children's shoes, into their emotional being at that time. I would just encourage you to very calmly check yourself, pull up a chair, sit with them, and just let it all out. Do not respond, just be there with them. And there's something to be said about emotional regulation. And another big reason that children are consumed by alienation is that children regulate off of their parental figures, off the adults around them, because we're not born with the skill to regulate ourselves, right?
sure.
So be conscious of the fact that maybe this person that is watching the children or is with the children at the moment may not have those skills themselves. And so the children are being put in a place where they're actually the regulatory other to their adults, and they don't know how to. So they're going to be all over the place. So you, as a leader of your family, need to teach these kids how to regulate. So think of it as you're gonna stabilize, you're gonna sit with the kids and let them just empty all their aggression and anger and frustration out on you. And you're going to think of it like a tether. You're emotionally tethered to these kids, and your stabilizing emotional regulation in that moment is going to help bring them down out of the rafters. Because usually the kids are up here and we join them,
Sure.
right? So keep yourself very stabilized because the kids will eventually regulate off you. They will come down. And you're probably going to have to do that over and over and over until the kids feel safe with you again. They feel safe in their relationship with you. And then, you won't have to work as hard for it.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
You're
We did
welcome.
get to every question. We'll try to get to them offline. Pathways Family Coaching website is
pathwaysfamilycoaching.com. And you can reach us also at our toll-free number, 855-715-5050.
so everyone who attended the webinar, everyone who registered for the webinar will get this copy of this webinar series. So you will have their information in the webinar that you receive if you don't recall it from this conversation. But get some coaching, get some help. Being able to trying to figure this out all on your own is too hard, and it's just not necessary. When there's literature, there's tests, there's ways that you can be equipped to fight this. Just like you have people have life coaches, people have soccer coaches, you have a yoga coach, you have coaches for all sorts of things to just make you more, so you can pull on someone else's expertise rather than having to go out and learn how to be that type of expert yourself, which is really hard when it's the things you love the most being attacked, right? So hope you enjoyed today. Thank you all. Thank you, Jenna. Thank you, Monique. I really appreciate it. And stay tuned for our webinar series in the next few weeks. Tomorrow is Take Control Tuesday. So that's when we have some fun and talk about mindset and how to be winners in the face of adversity. Tomorrow we are having sports talk show host and former Denver Bronco Nick Ferguson. He's going to come, he's going to talk to you, he's going to take your questions, he's going to talk to you about how to be winners in tough times. So join us for that. Those are always really fun. And then on Friday, we are going to be talking about child support in light of COVID-19, child support in light of how you might need to modify it, how your income might have changed, how it might not have changed. So I will be taking those questions on Friday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much, ladies. Have a
Thank
good
you.
day.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us for this webinar. If you or someone you know would benefit from watching a recording of this webinar or any of our other webinars, they can be found at denverdivorceattorneys.com. Thank you, and keep a lookout for future live webinars, and I hope to see you again.